Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel on this morning on ITV. Well, it's all about the ONDO state election in retrospect and review. We want to score the process. Those state election came up, yes, and Nigerians were like happy about the way, the process, the comportment of the parties involved in the election. Can that be said about the ONDO state election? There was a mishap. Thank God that no one lost their life in that mishap. And the election for that region, for that constituent, or last ward or unit or local government went on smoothly. But many persons are of the opinion that the electoral umpire, which is INEC, is yet to perfect their method of conducting election. But some of the opinion also that this is just a start for them to have a pass mark, so to speak, in the Edo State election. And right now, they just concluded the Ondo State election, still gathering intels and report about the outcome of the election. What do you feel about the Nigerian umpire when you talk about elections in Nigeria? With me here in the studio is a very vibrant youth and, of course, an entrepreneur, a businessman. Join me to welcome Emmanuel Ibogo. Emmanuel, welcome to TMI Sunday's edition.
Good morning,
right.
and good morning, viewers at home. It's a pleasure having you here.
Okay, and sitting very close to Emmanuel, he's a vibrant youth also. When you talk about legal matters, he's in depth in it. When you talk about interpreting laws, he's vast in it. He's also a political analyst. Join me to welcome Osayuki. Yes, Osayuki Kings. Welcome to TMI on this edition.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
So here we are. After much talk, much expectations, both elections, they've come and gone. The Edo State election came up first, and yesterday was that of Ondo State. Now let's take a look at Ondo State elections. What do you feel about the process? Because in this discussion segment, we want to score the process, the pre and of course the election proper. The post-election just started a few hours after the election. Right? Let's talk about the pre and the election. Let me start off from you, or with you rather, Emmanuel. What do you feel about the Ondo State election?
Well, I had always believed that Akeredolu would emerge victorious, owing to the fact that he has something to campaign with. If his industrial hub he has created for his people, that alone should speak volume, unlike what we had back here in Edo, where our governor promised industrial park, and today it is only bloated by bushes. For me, I believe any government that would want to talk about continuity should do that on the basis of performance. And Akeredolu has been able to, despite the little resources available to the government, he has been able to do a little bit of development for his people. And that alone has shown by the voting strength you see, or results you see trickling in since last night. As at now, as we speak, coalitions are still ongoing. But I think 14 local governments, before we walked into the studio, 14 local government has been announced, and thus far he's winning 11. And in a state where you have 18 local governments and the governor has already clinched 11, only God knows how the opposition will be able to force that vote that would, that would make them emerge victorious. But as of today, I put it to everyone listening that Akeredolu would be announced the winner.
Anyway, we have to wait for the electoral umpire to give us a final result.
But that's the scenario that
we just have to
out.
wait. We just have to wait, okay?
Thank you very much.
Kings, what do you feel about the conduct of the election in general?
Yes. First of all, I would like to appreciate INEC for what they are doing so far, starting from the Edo State elections, Edo State governorship election. Edo State election has kind of set a standard on how elections should be conducted in Nigeria, and anything we get from any other forthcoming election should be better. We expect it to be better than Edo State. But unfortunately, when you juxtapose or compare both election, how they are being conducted, you will find that Ondo State election, we still have pockets of violence here and there. and you look at the whole system, like when you come to Edo State election, the conduct of the security personnel, well commendable. And you follow up the stories and what happened during those state election, you see the military men who were mounting roadblocks. Someone actually described them as women, contrary to what we saw in Edo State. And you see the police officers and the security personnel at the polling units, and you still see election offenses like soliciting and buying of votes. I know we have similar cases in Edo State election, but very minimal. And also look at the conduct of the election generally. I would say it is below our expectation when we judge from what we have observed in Edo State. It is below our expectation, and the results are trickling in, and we can see that Akeredolu of the All Progressive Congress is doing so well. But let's wait for INEC to announce the final results so before we be very certain.
All right. Now, from what you said it's below, I want to put it now, expectation when compared to that of Edo State. Do you toe the same line with him?
Very well, I told the same line, but I think I have certain reservations. Because first of all, for you to adjudge any process to be good or bad, you must first of all take into recognizance of the environment. You saw what happened when some persons, INEC officials who were going to the southern part of ONDO State. You saw it was reported in your news this morning when a boat capsized and rescue team had to rush in. So owing to the fact that those persons who their boat capsized, there should be some INEC materials, card readers on that boat. And if you take a closer look into the situation, you see that the environment itself, and owing to the fact that there have been some, exchange of hot words from the PDP and the APC. And one beautiful thing about this ONDO election is that you have political leaders from each geopolitical constituencies in the state, the south, the north, and the central, bringing out their sons to say we must vote for our sons. If you look at the stronghold of Akeredolu within the Akure axis, APC won that axis with thousands of votes in a landslide. If you look at that of the south, where the deputy governor hails from, which is the marine and the coastal corridors, you will see that you will see that the deputy governor also pulled out some votes. And if you also see on the part of the central where Jegede comes from, you also see that Jegede himself too has also been pulling some weight. But however, there was this coloration of political bigwigs. Like I've not heard much from the governor of Rivers State, shouting it is neither his party or not. Unlike the interest that built up to Edo election, I've not seen much of that in the ONDO election. So that tells you that the governor is on ground. The governor has something to campaign with. Because ordinarily, even where everybody knew that our government had issues with their political interests and also made a political shift to the PDP, we saw nearly daily broadcasts from Rivers State as if the election was taking place in Rivers State. That we did not see in ONDO, even if Governor Makinde was the chairman of the governing campaign council. I think we also did not see the sort of Tinubu broadcast, that also got a big blow on the APC in Edo. So most of these things are what you look very paso. But however, judging the election, I believe INEC must improve. I saw cases whereby on the social media where electorates were complaining about the card reader. Same issues we also complained about in Edo, where persons with PVC could not vote because the card reader programming did not capture their cards. Very many of this happened even in my polling units in the last elections. But however, voting has come, it has gone, and coalition is what we are looking up to. So let us sit back and wait for Akeredolu's victory.
You are not the umpire. Emmanuel, I wouldn't want to be sentimental about this, because right now it's like you are becoming sentimental, and please calm down. You're not the umpire, okay? When they call the result, get to know the winner. Now, you raised some points I really want us to dive into in this discussion, talk about. Yes, let's start off from the aspect of voting according to your local government or geopolitical zone. It didn't play out in Ondo State, but in Ondo State, it played out itself in Ondo State. What do you think are the reasons behind this?
Well, voting according to your geopolitical local government or your region is key in elections. And you see, sometimes it depends on where you are registered and where your tag or unit where you're tied. Like myself, in Edo State, I voted in Obahoka local government area. And sometimes you need to vote, your card needs to be registered or linked to the area where you can easily access and vote. So I think that played out more in Edo State, and also due to the sensitization carried out by INEC, which is very key.
All right, now, and he talked about one other thing, talking about the big wigs, the interest in Edo State, according to reports, seems to be there in Ondo State. Do you think that really made any difference? He mentioned some names.
Sure. You see, Edo State election, Edo State governorship election is a sui generis election. I don't think we've had any kind of election where the governor at the time, before the election, during the election, he contested in 2016 on a different political party. And in this election, he went back to the same party to be the flag bearer of that party. And also, we saw all the drama, the scenarios, the games that played out. It was like Game of Thrones in Edo State. About 2 years prior to the election. So the election actually gave the Edo people and in fact, the entire country reasons to focus, to beam their lights on the Edo State election. And big wigs from different parts of the country actually had a lot to say about the Edo State election. And you must understand that Edo State is located in a strategic position in the country. And the APC and the PDP, the interest was so much. And we also look at the doomsday prophecy of violence. You know, a lot of persons felt like the election is going to be filled with a lot of violence and bloodshed and the likes, but contrary to this doomsday prophecy, what we saw was quite different. Now, if you look at those state elections, for instance, yes, it's still, they still have this doomsday prophecy, because even a few days to the election, we could hear gunshots and news of gunshots, in Nakure and some other areas. But then, the governor is well seated. He is from the People's All Progressive Congress, and he has done well before the election. He's used his first tenure to, do some things. And like my brother here said, he has some few things to campaign with. So the other candidate from the People's Democratic Party, because as we can see, is a three-horse race between the All Progressive Congress, the People's Democratic Party, and the Senate Labour Party. So you see, it's keenly contested, and they all went to the field. I think the big wigs, like we saw in Edo State, didn't really play out in Ondo election, and the reasons are really there. Edo State election, the build up to the election was so massive, and even we are still trying to recover from that in the Edo State. All right.
Thank you so much, Osayuki Kings. I will come back to you. It's all about taking a look at what transpired in the Ondo State election, Ondo 2020, in retrospect, scoring the process. That is what we are analyzing this beautiful morning on ITV. Now, people have the opinion the reason why there was so much hype in Edo State election when you compare it to Ondo State election is because of the sharing formula. This party take this part and another party to take this part. These are own domain. You just can't come in to grab our domain. Do you think that is the reason why there's this huge disparity between the hypes in this election? Emmanuel?
When you talk about the hypes, For me, I think the Edo election, was all about Oshomole, the national interest of his political lifeline, within the ruling party, the APC, and Edo people. Because if you take a closer look of what played out in the last election, was that an Adams Ali Oshomole, the former national chairman of the APC, saw he had made previous political mistakes in the past, and decided to correct them, but at the detriment of the sitting governor, who saw his political boss as an enemy, So that build-up, and don't forget, our people in Edo, will I call them sort of genetic humans? They believe so much in them say, we say, they said, that has always been, the issue. Coming from the Adams Ali Oshomole build-up as governor, you remember the slogan of Lucky Gbenedion, the Gbenedions, and we push from there to the Iyamu, Eze Iyamu, and the story that, covered it. So those things were part of the build-up. The Edo election, the electorate went to the pool not to decide on performance. They went to the pool to decide on the political fortunes.
But most of them, according to reports, went there because of what they saw.
No, when you say what they saw, when you say what they saw.
Hold on, Kings. I'll come to you, Kings. Hold on.
I'm coming. Yeah. When you say what they saw, as of today, is it that they saw the Osiomo power lines and the powers, the electricity itself is not being consumed by the people as of today? Is it that they saw street lights that are no longer on and it's now on and they want to vote for that? Or they saw new roads like we have in Airport Road, we have in Siloko, that was built by Adams Ali Oshomole? That was not the case. Or was it that we saw a better infrastructure in the state? No, that was not the case. You agree with me, you apply the roads every day to office and back. We have not seen any latest or modest infrastructure in the states that was recently built by the incumbent government. No, it was just this political...
Emmanuel.
No, but that's the case.
Emmanuel, okay, fine. Now, I want to call in Kings here. Osaiko Kings, do you share the same views and opinion? Because what about right now in both election and ONDO?
We are totally at a different page on what he's saying. Yeah. You see, I will speak as a lawyer. The Edo people, they are very intelligent people. I have had reasons to represent clients outside Benin, outside the Edo state, in the north, in the west. And when you come out of court and you are talking to your client in Edo state, for instance, Benin, for instance, you say, this is what happened. Nobody will even be telling you what the court said. We are that enlightened. But other parts of the country, sometimes you have to go, use our own local pidgin English to explain to the client to understand. So when he's saying Edo people don't follow the trend, or they went to the pools for what they would gain, I observed that election with the advocate of people's rights and justice. And what I saw played out in that election is beyond political propaganda. People actually came out to vote for a preferred candidate. Now, I won't go into, because that's be a topic for another day, I won't go into comparing Adams Oshomole's administration of 8 years with that of Godwin Obaseki of just 4 years. He has not been sworn into office for his second term. But you can visibly see what the governor has done. The road to my house is not tarred. It's under construction. I don't know what is the post. The road to my office was under construction and has been paused. That does not mean I've not come to recognize the good work the governor is doing in other areas. You understand? Just a few days ago, I had a problem with my car. And I tied it to the road I apply every day. But I'm sensible enough to look at other areas that the people of Edo State have benefited from the government. So I think it is very unfair and very uncharitable for my friend here to say the governor is underperforming.
All right. Yes. All right. Now, let's leave the issue of performance, underperforming by the governor of Edo State and all that. Two different opinions. Now, let's go back to Ondo State. Before the election proper, there was this outburst of violence, clashes here and there between the incumbent and, of course, the people that really want to take power. But in the election, reports has it that it wasn't that severe. It was relatively peaceful. What do you think led to this peace?
Obviously, there's nobody that wants to carry out any form of violence when there's over 32 policemen, in a state. Not to talk about other sister security agencies, the military, the civil defense, name it, etc., as we know them, the Air Force. Nobody will want to come out to say they want to beat an act of violence. Nobody will come out to do that. Now, the issue here is this. Nigerians are now aware that votes actually counts.
The vote actually counts.
Yeah, that subconsciousness is becoming, a thing of reality. Before, you would be going to vote and somebody will say, oh, but you should waste your time. Just go there and do your thing. They will announce a different result. But I put it to you that if what is actually going on in those states is not the true reflection of what is on ground, the PDP, as we know them, to be a party that knows how to come out to put their issues, particularly when it has to do with elections, where we have seen that in ONDO, in Kogi, even before the elections, press conferences were granted on various strata of political interests.
It's enlightening the people of what is happening.
Yeah, are you getting me? So that was not the reflection of what happened in ONDO State. As at now, I've been going across all the media channels on the social media and the electronic media also to see if there have been any outbursts. That has not been the case. So gradually people are beginning to see that their vote counts. And you don't need to mobilize people to go and cause violence when you have PVC. When you know that the major thing you need to do is to come all out with your PVC, mobilize people with high numbers of PVC, and go to the ballot to count your votes. If you take a closer look at what happened in the last election, even the candidates that I supported of the APC has also come out to say, see, well, I'm not going to contest the
outcome of the election.
The outcome of the election, because I cannot say it is free or fair because of some certain issues, but from what I've seen thus far, I believe it's something government and INEC can improve upon, and so that be it. But however, we the electorates have to make a major turnaround thinking, because I do not see a reason why some group of persons will go all out, not supporting the interest of voting because of what they can see, but because of what they want to hear.
Emmanuel, here you go again. Here you go again. No, but your opinion, but okay, fine. I will come back to you. Now you just hold on. Now, but what he rightly said, the vote of the people of the electorate, according to report, is beginning to count. In Ondo State, yes, we've seen them. They're still collecting results out of 11. Okay, fine. Someone is leading, waiting for the final outcome of the result. Do you think that that's what really gave people or electorates the mind to come out there to vote, taking a cue from what happened in Edo State?
Okay, Edo State election, which like I said before, I observed, is quite peaceful, calm, and to a very large extent free and fair. We understand the fact that it is almost an impossibility to have a totally hitch-free election. But substantial compliance to the Electoral Acts and laws governing and elections activities in Nigeria is what is required by the law. And we saw that played out in Edo State. And I think Ondo is just a neighboring state, in a nearby state, and they very well observed what played out in Edo State. Because before now, when you looked at the Kogi elections and to a large extent also the presidential elections, you find out that some of us, we think our democratic process was taking a reverse step. But with the Edo State election, we still have confidence that we're having democratic consolidation, and the survival of our democracy is beaming, and is shining brighter. And I think that gave the people of Ondo State the confidence to say, yes, if the people in the Edo State, if their vote can count, if they are seeing what the government is doing, and they can judge on that parameters and cast their vote, contrary to what my brother here say, they too can replicate the same, process in Ondo State. But however, looking at the numbers of persons, the turnout, the level of the turnout in Edo State is commendable, especially when you see the aged and people above basically 40 years of age coming out to vote. Because if you look at the number of youths we have in the Edo State is far ahead of that of the aged. But the youths, they came out quite all right. But look at the older people; they are very much interested. And of course, I will give kudos to today is a guest day also. Yeah. I will give kudos to guest day. I will give kudos to the female in the Edo State election. A lot of them turned out for the election. But when you look at the Ondo State election, the turnout rate can't be compared to that of Edo State. I would have expected more from them, having taken a clue from what happened in Edo State.
All right, we just can't talk about the Ondo State election without talking about the aspect of vote buying.
Yes.
Some of the opinion that money exchange hands. You get to see people mortgaging their conscience because of little coins. So why do you think vote buying persists in our election, Emmanuel?
It still boils down to the level of hunger. And that was why I said our electorate must begin to have a sort of rethinking. You cannot collect just 5,000 naira for an election to cast your vote and remain hungry for another 4 years. So that is where the issue of rethinking must come in. Secondly, again, you have to know the number of, or the level of poverty. That is another factor. Because I do not think somebody can give me 5,000 naira in an election to buy my conscience. So, but that does not apply to nearly everybody, that comes out to vote. So these are some other major factors that, ought to be put into a check. But however, I've come to believe that vote buying itself, it's an order of the day because of the political interest. You cannot just hold one political party to say vote buying. All parties, all political parties in this, activity.
But some may have a different opinion. They'll be like, we're not involved in vote buying. We don't charge people with money to buy votes. Or mortgage their conscience.
There's nobody on earth, there's no thief on earth that will agree it's a thief until when he or she is being caught. That is the way we run our society. So, but however, I believe if we must have a shift from this issue of vote buying, the Electoral Act as amended, that is awaiting the expenditure of the president, to sign into power, where a political party is given an amount of money to expend in an election. I think that would also play a major role into checkmating vote buying. Okay, now you just hold on. I want to go for a break. When we return, we'll continue with ONDO 2020 election in retrospect and, of course, scoring the process. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to TMI Sunday's edition. It's all about ONDO 2020 in a retrospect. Yes, scoring the process. Still have Emmanuel Aibogu and, of course, Sayuki King with me here in the studio. We're talking about vote buying. Yeah, please take it up from there.
And just as I've said, the level of hunger in the land it has been a factor. But we will not continue lamenting on the factors. We will continue lamenting, or rather, engaging ourselves on the way forward and the way out of this, criminal intentions of political participants in our political life. If you agree with me, since the Saraki-led National Assembly did pass that electoral act that saw more of what INEC is doing today in terms of computerization of the electoral process, you agree with me that if the president had appended the signature to those electoral reforms, a political party would not be allowed to spend, a certain amount of money. And by the time when they approves to show that certain amount of money, have been, overexpended than what is stipulated by law, and it amounts to some level of disqualification or what have you, political parties will no longer want to, induce voters. It is because the voters themselves know that these politicians must come with XYZ amount of money on the day of election. That is why they are, falling for vote buying. So not until when our laws, are now being made, to checkmate these, excesses, we will not live out of it. Because in every enlightened or in every organized society, it is the law formulation, law amendments that checkmates all these excesses. So when we are not allowing that opportunity for law amendment, to come and check the excesses, because do not forget, legislators sat down, legislated, amended, and transmitted, passed and transmitted to the executive to append. But because of political consciousness or political interest here, the law has still been, pending, awaiting a presidential assent. So I believe if that is done, I believe a whole lot of shift, as to not just only vote buying, the high cost of buying, forms for elections. As at the last election, I was wanting to contest, but when I sat down to draw a rough estimate of of the budget it will cost, nobody advised me to say, come on, it is not time, because I don't want to contest an election where I will not emerge victorious. And in our election these days, money is a major factor that brings up a candidate. So if you don't have money, just imagine in the last Edo election, would you believe that you had 18 contestants in the state? But as of today, I don't think we know more than 5. We
have 14 contestants.
Sorry, 14 contestants in the state. I don't think we know more than 5. So these are the issues. And if you take a closer look of those remaining 9 that we do not know, financial constraints are one of the major factors. So not until when we narrow and marry these things, with our laws that are being amended, we will continue facing the same issues, because I believe, as from the school of thought of Zig Ziglar, that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting another form of answer is another form of madness. So that is it.
Right. Now, on vote buying has spoken at length. He talked about poverty and, of course, the delay in the signing of a particular a bill into law that is having the effect of monetary attempts, talk about monetary exchange, so to speak, during election.
Yes. I think he was referring to the 2020 bill being sent to the president for assent. But however, I think the extant Electoral Act has addressed some of these issues, aptly couched as electoral offenses. And one of those is soliciting for vote or inducing voters, by what we now have, what we now call vote buying. Now, I think that's under Section 129 of the Electoral Act. However, I don't agree with him again when he said poverty is the reason why people sell their votes. Ignorance, okay, but basically the reason people sell their vote is because no one has been made example of.
No one has been made example of.
That we can see, that the media we show to the people, oh, this guy. But in the state election, we saw a miniature of that. We saw some persons who were alleged, to have been buying or selling votes or buying votes. We saw them, how the police dealt with some of them. And though I have my reservation, I watched the video of how someone was actually, slapped and all that, I think that is an infringement of his fundamental rights. I have my reservation on that. But we need to see these persons being prosecuted. We need to see these persons, because every law, every offense have the sanctions that follows. It has a penalty that follows. I think it's 100,000 naira fine or imprisonment. So if we can go to the prisons and we interview some persons who were found wanting and prosecuted and actually, made to dance to the music of the law as it's played, and they are right there in the prison serving the terms, then you will notice a reduction of people coming out to openly buy and sell votes in the polling units. And that being said, I think again that for the sustainers of democratic progression, for the sustainers of democratic institutions, which free, fair, periodic, and credible elections is one of those, because what democracy promises is freedom, not what we call dividends of democracy. Those are dividends. What we as Nigerians call dividends of democracy is actually dividends of good governance, not democracy. What democracy is promising is freedom. So we want to see that play out in the election. People come out to freely cast their votes for their preferred candidates. And when we, or when the executive arm of government is failing continuously to implement our laws, it will really be difficult for us to get there. The laws are there. Some of us don't know that the laws are there. The laws are there, and the laws basically may not be the problem. But the problem we have in Nigeria, which is very critical, is the implementation of these laws.
Implementation of these laws. Now, he said poverty is not an issue, but rather no one has been made a scapegoat openly when you talk about vote buying. Do you have a divergent view on his opinion?
Well, I would have some reservations, but not very obvious and strong. You cannot totally rule out poverty. You cannot totally rule out poverty, because I believe if everybody is as enlightened and as educated as he is, and occupied as he is, I don't think they would want to fall for vote buying. Now, in 2015 general elections, you saw the PDP come out to say the APC was going all out to induce voters with this level of what do you call it, market women, soft loans, and what have you. As he is a lawyer, so if you try to narrow that with his views of putting those offenders to face the law, as the case may be, I believe petitions were written. I believe outcries via the press, protests, several, reach out to condemn such acts. And at the end of the day, nothing is being done, because the laws does not stop such actions, So if our laws, I know why I laid emphasis on laws. If the law says, do not use XYZ monies when it is time for campaign, there was no way the vice president would be going from one market to the other, prior to the elections, when we know we are already within the INEC election calendar, to be sharing one form of grants or loans, because that will be seen as a campaign tool. So not until when we understand that draft of the law, I've taken time to read through it, and I see it's a good one, where a political party is being given a guideline: do not sell amount of form at this price, at this price.
Yes.
Within the last governorship election we had in the state, contestants bought political party forms for as much as 18 million, for as much as 20 million. Now, if somebody like me wants to, that I have a smart dream for my state, and I want to implement it, how will I go about generating 20 million if I am not having the interest of the elites, within my ambition? So that is the issue. Ordinarily, the democracy we practice should be that of a level playing ground. But when you now put a peg of, an election for a governorship ticket for as much as 20 million, House of Assembly tickets for as much as 5 million, House of Rep tickets for as much as 10, 15, 20 million, how do you expect the common man, the young ones like us, who ought to be the benefactor of this not too young to run bill, how do you expect us to come into the system when we have innovative ideas and make an impact? Standing right from the stage of nomination forms, you have already been disqualified, not by the fact that you are not capable to run for that office, no, but because of the resources constraint. So these are the issues. And if we do not as a people marry these things and see how our laws can, put it into check, we are still facing that same issues. If you look at what happened recently in, I think it's Kenya, where the Minister for Science and Technology is a 19-year-old graduate, a PhD holder is a 19-year-old. In Nigeria, for you to see a commissioner that is 30 years, he's even laughing. It's a problem. For you to see a commissioner that is 30 years old, it's a problem. So these are issues.
Okay.
And not until when we understand that the country we find ourselves in, this sovereign country called Nigeria, started on the basis of giving youths the platform for them to excel. How old was Zik? How old was, let me not use Zik, how old was Buhari when he came as head of state? How old was Abacha? How old was Babangida? I can go on and on.
No, okay, go ahead.
I understand your point. You're trying to appreciate law as a tool of social engineering. Law definitely will grow as society changes. Law will also come with new innovations. And just now, when you mentioned the leaders, our heroes past, the Zigs and you see, we have a problem as youths. I'm sorry, I'm taking a different tone. I know we are scoring, the ONDO elections.
Yes.
But let me just say this. We as youths, we have derailed. And the fault is not entirely us. We live in a country where we've had more years of military regime. And when the military guys come into power, the first thing they do is to suspend all political activities, is to suspend all political parties and the likes. And the pivotal role, the very important role political parties play in our society. INEC, for instance, one of their roles is to sensitize the people, to increase the political consciousness. At those times the military were there, there's no mentorship for leaders of tomorrow. There were no, political parties or at the grassroots level to give you the consciousness you have. Edo State today, we are very conscious politically. We have we conduct 2 major elections every 4 years. The governorship election, then the presidential election. Or like some other states where the governorship election and the presidential election are done within the same year or even within the same period. That gap between the military up until 1999, where political activities actually was, resurged in our society, we had a lapse of leadership and mentorship. A lot of persons who had the ideas would have been able to do well in governance, in government, but they didn't get the opportunity within that. So I don't think is more. I think we as youth now should begin to look inward. You said you wanted to contest. You can join a political party, which I believe you.
But he said it's you. When he saw the amount, he was like, he advised himself to please go back and
he should know that elections are won with bags of money,
all right,
friends, and
all
it's not a...
All right, okay, now, before we go, I would like you to take a look at one factor. Some pundits have the opinion that a factor played out itself in both elections, the presidency. that is because the president chooses to, be the president. That is the reason why we are seeing elections like this in Edo and, of course, in Ondo State, allowing everyone to do what they really ought to do within the ambient of the law-governing election, as long as the vote of the electorate count. Emmanuel, do you take this as another factor that contributed immensely to these elections, covering the process?
Obviously, I would say yes, because we are practicing democracy, and there's no other way to get hold of public office if you're not being elected, or rather appointed. And for you to get appointed, an election is always being conducted somehow, or somewhere. So the truth be said, I must say this, I want to commend INEC for involving technology more of, because there's this iPad, once they finish from your unit, they had to snap it, upload and transmit to the server. So if you would want to change such a result,
hold on now. We want to go for another break. We have to address some technical issues. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. Well, it's all about ONDO 2020 in retrospect, scoring the process. Emmanuel Aibogu and Osayuki Kings have been here with me in the studio talking about the process. So you're going to call it a wrap right now, putting that factor into consideration, the presidency. Emmanuel, please conclude.
Yes, calling it a wrap, I would want to call on Mr. President, the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to please sign the Electoral Act as amended.
The Electoral Act as amended. All right. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Kings?
Yes, I would like to appreciate the actors, INEC, the security operatives, looking at the Edo State election and the Ondo State election, and I see substantial compliance with our laws. And I think this will deepen democratic consolidation in our society. That's my position.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate your wonderful analysis. Well, the results are still trickling in before the day goes by. We'll get to know the winner. But as it stands, before 9 o'clock, 11 local governments, according to report, Akeredolu is leading. But we don't know the final result until we hear from the electoral umpire. We'll be right back after this break. Emmanuel, Saiki, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.